Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining our Using Business Advisory Councils to Connect Business and Education Leaders conversation. We're very excited to have some special guests with us today to share some promising practices from across the state. We also are very anxious to hear about what your business advisory councils are doing and planning for the next school year. So thank you very much for joining. And again, it'll be a jam-packed session. Just some etiquette reminders. If you're able, please feel free to turn on your video so that we can all interact and see each other's faces. Please be sure that your line is muted. We can mute you, but we can't unmute you. So if you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask those things as well. We are going to use the chat function primarily for questions. So if you have questions that you would like to ask our attendees or of any of our Department of Education staff, please feel free to use this Teams chat function to ask your questions. We are also going to use a virtual whiteboard called Padlet, and we'll walk you through a little bit on how to access that and how to share some resources throughout that Padlet. We really would like active participation. So any chance that you can add a resource or make a comment, we would definitely encourage that. And we want this to be as useful for you as possible. Our meeting objectives here for our time together is number one, to foster collaboration among all of you and your councils and your various organizations that you represent. We want to make sure that we do our job to highlight key areas of expected work of business advisory councils and the policies that support business advisory councils. The bulk of our session here today is going to be on discussing promising practices. Again, we have some special guests that are going to walk you through some of the work that their business advisory councils do, and we also want to give you an opportunity to do that. We want to briefly talk about completing your goals for this next year and how to chart out some action steps relating to those key functions of a business advisory council through walking you through our business advisory council planning template and give you an opportunity to ask questions about that. Lastly, we want to kind of end on giving you an opportunity to develop some individual goals for your organization. So we hope that you can walk away from our time together with at least one tangible idea of what you'd like to accomplish this next school year, even in these very uncertain times. So with that, thank you again for joining us. Those of you that did just join, I'll just remind you that we have posted our meeting presentation today, and we are going to be using a virtual whiteboard called Padlet. So if you have access to another device, or if your device allows for you to both see this video conference and interact with a different website, that will be the most useful for our time together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is introductions, and we're very fortunate that we have, it looks like, close to 70 individuals on our call here today. So we're going to do that via this Padlet. So this link is interactive here, so you should be able to click it. If not, Michelle's going to post the link to this Padlet in the chat. This QR code will also work. So if you have a phone handy and you go to your camera function on your phone, it will then allow you to scan this QR code and open up that link if you would like to interact with Padlet on your phone. So we have the layout of the Padlet to kind of share which questions we'd like you to reply to, and then which questions we'd like you to make separate posts to. So at this time, I'm going to ask Michelle to go ahead and share her screen so we can show everyone what the Padlet looks like.
Certainly, and again, thank you everyone for joining us today. I did post the link to Padlet in the chat, so please go ahead and introduce yourselves. And this is what Padlet looks like. And I've pretty much put an example here, and I see, thank you guys for already adding those. Go ahead and add your name, your email address, the organization you're with, and we hope that you'll be able to utilize this function. There will be various interactive portions of this meetup today. And for now, let's go ahead and use the introductions. And then as we proceed, we'll ask that you actually fill in some of these other components as well.
Perfect.
Alrighty, thank you all for joining us.
Okay, so and if you have trouble with Padlet, no worries. Just feel free to use the chat box function in this Teams virtual meeting if that's easier to use, and we can kind of help navigate getting the responses in the right places. So we're hoping that this virtual whiteboard environment can give us a place to feel comfortable with interacting with each other's work. The great thing is that you can also post pictures and links to additional information right on Padlet as well. So for introductions, we'd like you to give your name, title, email address if you're comfortable, what school or organization you represent, and then one aspiration that you have for your business advisory council this year, or whatever business and education partnerships that you're hoping to develop. So one aspiration. We'll give you just a minute to do that. And while we're doing that, Michelle and I are going to introduce ourselves. So my name is Cassie Paulsgrove. I'm the program administrator who oversees the Success Bound and Career Connections work. I've been with the department for about 7 years and was a classroom agriculture teacher prior to my time at the department. Michelle, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Michelle Washington, and I'm an education program specialist here at the Ohio Department of Education. And I had the fortunate pleasure of starting just in March when everything pretty much went virtual. Prior to coming here, I worked for one of the largest pediatric healthcare systems, Nationwide Children's, in their HR Human Resources department. So I'm happy to be part of this team, and I'm happy for the work that you're doing currently in your districts.
Great. And hopefully you're seeing each other's responses, so you'll have an opportunity to virtually meet people in that Padlet as well. So just a reminder, a lot of this work is directly in line with Each Child Our Future, which is the Ohio Department of Education's strategic plan for education. We're actually in year 2 of Each Child Our Future, where our one goal is to increase annually the percentage of high school students who within 1 year of graduation are enrolled and succeeding in a post-high school learning experience, which can include an adult career technical program, an apprenticeship, and a 2- and 4-year degree program. Serving in the military, earning a living wage, or engaged in a meaningful self-sustaining vocation. So business advisory councils can absolutely contribute to this goal. And we're very excited to have this conversation today about how we can work together across industries to help students meet this one goal. So the first part of our session here today is all about giving you an overview of business advisory councils and just reconnecting you with what the purpose of business advisory councils are. We're then going to move into our promising practices highlight so you can learn a little bit more about what other organizations are doing across the state. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Michelle, and she's going to give you a brief overview of the history of business advisory councils and where we are today.
Okay, and as Cassie just expressed, the purpose of business advisory councils were started with the intention for every school district and educational service center to have a business advisory council with the intent purpose that you just stated, to help students in those post-secondary transitions to find opportunities to be able, whether that be college, military, and so that was the expressed intent of those councils. Every school district in Ohio is required to have a functioning business advisory council, and part of that is for them to submit those plans, which we'll be addressing later on and helping to walk you through that process. Next slide. And as I've indicated, each school. And so the responsibilities of the business advisory councils, the first one is to help students in those post-secondary transitions, help them to attain employment skills for the future, to equip them for the workforce, specifically for those jobs that are in demand in their local communities. And so that's what we hope that the business advisory councils would help to prepare our students for future success. Changes in the economy. The economy is constantly changing. The job market is changing. And so we hope that our business advisory councils would help to equip our students to position themselves to align with those changes to actually be equipped to be able to attain those jobs. We hope that our business advisory councils are establishing relationships in their local districts with their business community to help students to provide, whether it be mentorship, work-based opportunities, internships. So we're hoping that you'll form and forge great relationships with your local business advisory councils to be able to provide opportunities for students. And so when business advisory councils first started in operations back in December 31st, based on this timeline, and keep in mind, these are the original timelines. They were originally, that's when school districts had a mandate to start implementing those plans. And then in June of 2018, districts established business advisory councils with, again, those intent to provide future opportunities to students. Each business advisory council were then asked to submit a plan annually. Those plans are due on September 30th. And so when the business advisory councils were first established, the first plan was required on September 30th of 2018. And then those plans were then published with joint statements in March of 2019. And if you are now joining us, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat box the link for Padlet. We're using Padlet. It's an interactive whiteboard, and we ask that you introduce yourself. Please, if you're now joining us, add your name, organization, and also please put any aspirations that you have for your local business advisory council for the next year.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. And so we want to give you an opportunity also to ask questions about the operations of business advisory councils. So the way that we're going to take questions for our session here is through this Teams chat function. So if there's a particular question you have about submitting business advisory council plans or anything about when standards of operation were enacted, please feel free to ask those questions in the chat. At this time, we're going to move into the promising practices section of our agenda. And there's a couple of ways we want to do this. The first part is going to be all about our key presenters sharing with you some of their high impact examples of what their councils are doing. We also then want to turn it over to you to share about some of your business advisory council activities. So again, we want to capture as much as we can in this virtual whiteboard called Padlet. You can use your phone to scan that QR code and use Padlet on your phone if you'd like. You can also use that link to just open a separate browser window right on your desktop if you happen to be on a computer. The first column of Padlet has a section for you to be able to share with our presenters some of the key takeaways that you have for their presentations, as well as a spot for you to introduce yourself. So the very last section of the first column has like to share with our presenters some of the key takeaways that you had from their presentation. So if you can find that and give our presenters some feedback, I know they'd appreciate it. So if anyone again has questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and introduce our key highlight business advisory council presenters. So we're very fortunate today to have Akron Public Schools, Auglaize Mercer Business Education Alliance, Building Bridges to Careers, and the Montgomery County ESC here with us today to share a little bit with you about two things. Number one, an overview of the way that they interact with their business advisory council, but they've also prepared to share with you one key activity, project, program that their business advisory council really excels at. So hopefully you'll get some generating really good ideas here as a part of this session. So again, feel free to use the chat function to ask our presenters questions. feel free to use Padlet to kind of give some feedback to our presenters about the key takeaways. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and introduce our first Business Advisory Council highlight, and that's Akron Public Schools. So I will let Akron take it away and introduce themselves and share a little bit with you about the work that they do with business and industry. Don't forget to unmute yourselves. Yes.
Got it. Hi, I'm David James, Superintendent, Akron Public Schools. I have with me Rachel Tecca and Elizabeth Winter, who are in our College and Career Academy department. We use the Northeast Ohio ESC to do all the administrative duties of our Business Advisory Council. We've had one in place since before I became superintendent back in 2008. When I was business manager starting in 2002, we had the old version and then converted to the new version in 2017. We have a hybrid now, and I'll have Rachel explain our partnerships using a model that was produced by Ford Motor Company, their next generation learning operation as part of our College and Career Academy program.
Thanks, Dr. James. So I get the opportunity to share with you all kind of how we have structured business engagement in the city of Akron. If Cassie or Michelle, if you could switch to the next slide.
Sure.
What we have done in Akron is really transform the high school experience for our students. 100% of students in Akron Public Schools are in college and career academies or career technical education. So students in 9th grade enter high school in a freshman academy. They spend a time in a course called the Freshman Seminar, where they explore they first start with transitioning successfully to high school, and then they explore careers and they explore the pathways offered at their high school, and then they choose a pathway to explore for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And when we say 100% of our students in Akron, it's 100% of students, regardless of challenges, regardless of if labels students may or may not have, they are picking a pathway for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So you see this as a massive kind of transformation, and we are really committed to making sure that our graduates leave us prepared for their next steps in life, whether it's enrollment, enlistment, or employment. We believe the College and Career Academy model is the foundation to help them on to their next steps in life. To do that, we know that it can't be just educators leading that transformation, right? It's actually going to take an entire community. And one of the things that we've done in Akron is build a systematic structure to sustain business engagement at a very deep level. Currently, we have over 260 business partners that support each of the high schools across the city. And we're very grateful to live in the community we live in, and we have a ton of committed business and community partners willing to come to the table and support this transformation. But to really recruit and sustain that type of engagement really requires a systematic approach. So if you turn to the next slide, Cassie, you will see basically we have 4 tiers of engagement that we support here in Akron. At the school level, we have Academy Advisory Boards. The intention for the Academy Advisory Boards is to make sure that we're meeting industry standards, that we are providing as much work-based learning as possible for our students. And we are working within those advisory boards to network and learn and meet other people within the field that might be interested in supporting the students in their progression towards graduation and industry credentials and college credits and all of the things that we know we want our students to graduate with. There are academy advisory boards at every high school for every academy that you saw on the previous slide. In addition to that kind of base level structure that's been built, we have a second tier that we call the industry sector partnerships. That's more of a district level approach to business engagement. There are 5 industry sector partnerships right now in Akron. We have one for healthcare, one for information technology, one for manufacturing and the hard trades, business, arts and communication, as well as public service. The industry sector partnerships meet 3 times a year, and they look to make sure that there's equitable opportunities, equitable experiences, equitable resources, regardless of which IT pathway you are attending or which high school that you're attending. This group is constantly looking at data. They're making sure that our students all have opportunities to learn and grow through business and community partnerships. And it's been hugely helpful to really have kind of an oversight group for those specific industry sectors. In addition to that level, we have a CEO champions group of business engagement where our high-level CEOs in the community really champion this transformation we call college and career academies. They are working with us to really support this networking piece, promoting the major ideals of college and career academies, and also advocating for us at the state level to make sure that we are supported in all that we do. Lastly, and this is that big picture systematic approach that I believe is probably our definitely a area of strength for us in Akron, is the steering committee 3.0. We have an oversight group of about 60 business partners that are working to make sure that we are actually doing what we say we're going to do, following through, monitoring the overall health of our academies, and then giving guidance on what the next steps need to be to kind of enhance and grow the college and career academies and the business engagement. So if I were to say what our strength is in Akron right now, it's just this systematic way that we're bringing in business and community partners to support our learning, to support students' experiences both in and out of the community. And Dr. James, I think, referenced that when he talked a little bit about, you know, we do use the ESC for that Business Advisory Council, but we also have our own kind of systematic way that we're engaging the public. Dr. James, anything else you would add to that?
No, I just think, you know, when it's something when, you know, you can have the top CEOs of your community come in, and in our model, they actually adopt an academy, in some cases a whole school. And it's not just business, it's also our post-secondary partners. And, you know, to see like a whole HR department from Akron Children's Hospital go to North and do mock interviews with their students, it's giving them, you know, an experience of what they'll see when they get out of school and what real life is all about. And that's something, you know, that I've been really pushing, that our students need to get a real rendition of what that real world experience is going to look like. And so we're real thankful for having all of our, you know, larger organizations and our smaller organizations. I mean, really, a lot of them have come to the table and have really been great partners so far.
I think for many people that are tuning in here today, this idea of various business advisory council and industry sector partnerships interacting together is probably a very interesting topic, because we all know that there's a lot of different types of business advisory councils, workforce collaborations, workforce development boards, higher ed has business advisory councils as well. So the idea that you've really tapped into all of those various structures to roll up and adopt academies the way you talked about it, I think is very smart. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Akron Public Schools? It's pretty impressive that all of your high school students will have a pathway of focus in their high school year. So thank you very much for sharing. I'm sure more questions will come in the chat. We're also collecting feedback on the Padlet.
Hey, Cassie.
Yes.
This is Christine Boucher with Eastland Fairfield. I do have a question for them on how long has this been a work in progress? So was the 1920 school year your first year with it, or how long has this been in motion?
Okay, so I cooked up this idea, not really, but with some help, in 2011, and then I reached out to Ford Motor Company and talked with them, and it really wasn't ready to be fully baked back then. And it took us, I think, Rachel, in 2017, we actually became a Ford Next Generation Learning Community, in the first one in Ohio. And then this is this year we graduated, I think, if I'm not mistaken, our first class of students who've gone through the main academy, the guinea pigs at North High School. They were our first school to go wall to wall in terms of the academy model. So it took some time, but Ford Motor Company has a process that you have to go through. We went through that. We use a lot of other agencies in our community. Connexus Cineo is a workforce development agency. They're really leading that effort on helping us get partners and work with the industry council. So it did take some time, but the nice thing about us is that we actually had that Ford framework that we follow religiously, and that's really been a great help. There's about almost 40 districts following that across the country.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered if you guys, we struggle sometimes with getting the employers engaged, and it doesn't happen as fast as we as educators would like it. So I wondered what your experience was.
In my experience, as soon as we had the folks from Bridgestone come in, because they have a shortage of auto mechanics nationwide, and we took them to our East High School and our automotive shop, those people were foaming at the mouth to get their hands on our kids when they saw what they were doing. And I think a lot of times it means opening up our doors and having those people come in. And we're just lucky that we have many of our businesses are very interested because they have some critical workforce needs. And I've been telling them all along, your future is in our schools, because their workforce is really getting older, and a lot of our parents don't really understand what some of the opportunities are.
Very true. Good job. Thank you.
I think these are things many people struggle with. So thank you, Christine, for the question, and very much Akron Public for the answer. Dr. James, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will continue to take questions in the chat, and please feel free to offer some feedback of what section of this was helpful in the Padlet as well. Okay, next we're going to introduce Shelley to talk a little bit about the Auglaize Mercer Business Education Alliance.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Cassie said, my name is Shelley Bussey. I'm the Executive Director of the Auglaize Mercer Business Education Alliance, which we just call AMBI for short. I also have on the call today the AMBI Board President, which is Patty Cisco. She's the owner, principal of Marketing Essentials in New Bremen, Ohio, and has been president on the AMBI board for 2 years. So as you can see on the slide, the AMBI organization was formed in 2013, 2014 by local business. Jack Busher, who owns an electrical company, is really the founder of AMBI. He had gotten really frustrated with trying to find electricians. We have a local career center, and he kind of exhausted his options with them, and then went and started talking to school counselors and found that many of them just did not have a lot of information on skilled trades. So that was kind of how AMBI began. He started reaching out to business and got financial support from businesses. So we do act as a 501c3. We serve Mercer and Auglaize County, so it's 13 local school districts. And as I said, I'm the executive director, and we have 12 volunteer board members. Next slide. So, AMBI really focuses on collaborative partnerships. One thing that I learned right when I started is that there are 2 attributes that all schools have in common. That is that they are 1, short on time, and 2, short on resources and money. So we started with the local schools, but we found that we could have more of an impact on curriculum if we made a connection and built a relationship with the educational service center. So we work very closely with the Mercer County and Auglaize County educational service centers. In the beginning, I actually had an office at each of those locations that I would go to weekly. But we also work very closely with our local economic development. And then obviously our business community, we have members that are part of the AMBI organization. And we really feel like this collaborative partnership is what has made AMBI successful. Next slide. So again, we have about 60 plus local businesses that are members. You can see the different sectors that we represent, but we have a very diverse background. And we are also right now kind of going through a restructuring of looking at this point, the schools don't have any financial contribution in any of the events that we hold, but we are looking at maybe having some small financial support from the local schools. But you can see, you know, I think one thing that's unique about AMBI is that the businesses are not just involved from a financial standpoint, but they're also very much involved with their time and their resources and what they give when they participate with other events that we hold. Next slide.
I'm going to give the video a try, Shelly.
Okay.
Here we go. Cross your fingers.
The Auglaize-Mercer Business Education Alliance hosted the 3rd annual Talent Connection Forum for high school juniors. The popularity of the event continues to grow, with nearly 1,100 students attending this year's 1.5-day event. AMBI business members presented on nearly 45 professions, with more than 55 local companies participating.
The students who are participating, I think it's a great opportunity for them to explore different opportunities. The interactive nature of it in the small groups helps a lot. The kids aren't as nervous. They're able to speak up and participate a lot better than big group setting.
I think this is a fantastic format. It gives people the opportunity to see what we really do in our work. You may think you know what a nurse does, but you may not know what a nurse practitioner does, or the fact that that nurse is also doing intensive care type nursing, that they can be doing administrative type nursing, you name it.
Local AMBI business members met with students in roundtable discussions to discuss future career opportunities, co-ops, and internships available at their company. These presentations were intended to provide the student insight as to what the career profession was like on a day-to-day basis, necessary skills, and education required.
Kids might just think, nursing, that's all I can do, nursing, because I want to do the medical field. Well, there's a lot in the medical field. And we had another student that went to 2 different sessions, healthcare, but also I think maybe PTOT, and she started to get to see some more options in the medical field. So that's valuable.
It's a good, more laid-back atmosphere in terms of us engaging in conversations about what they're looking for, as well as what we can provide at Back Machine.
Each student was assigned 2 career sessions based on their registration, followed by an open choice session where the students can choose which session to attend.
I had a lot of fun today. My first class was pharmaceuticals. It was a small session, so we really got to know the teacher, learn about her career path and opportunities.
Today was great. I learned a lot. Very eye-opening experience.
I actually really like this. I'm actually a senior, so I was here last year. Okay. So I went to art this morning, and I found that really helpful. Kind of gave me a good idea of what it's going to be like.
This is a great event, and AMBI is excited to be able to deliver this career event to area juniors.
Thank you, that worked. That's exciting. So you can go to the next slide. So this is an event that we have held for about 5 years now. It's called the Talent Connection Forum, and as the video stated, it is for all juniors at those 13 schools. So this past year, we had about 1,250 students attend. Luckily, we had it on March 2nd and 3rd, so we just missed all of the COVID action, so we were actually able to hold it. But the students register online for 2 different career sessions, and then the day of the event, they actually get to go to 3 sessions. So whatever they're feeling like that day, they get to pick for that 3rd session. But it's way different than a career fair because it's small group sessions. It's very much focused on discussions and conversations. We have about usually over 100 different businesses participating. And then those sessions usually have 10 or less students per session. So it takes a lot of coordinating. We hold it at our local university when they have spring break. So we basically use every room in that university and really spend some time prep work up front with the schools about, you know, what it means to ask questions. We expect the students to come in, professional attire. We give students a packet of information, just like if you would be going to a conference. And this year we also added a session called Need a Job Now. So that third session of the day, if some of our members are retail companies, and we also have manufacturing companies that are looking for summer employment. So it was an opportunity for a student to go talk to a company that was hiring right now. So again, this is really focused on juniors in high school, but we also get some questions or some requests from schools to send a few of their seniors that still aren't sure what they want to do. So we always are open to that option as well. So it's been a very popular event and something that the schools have requested that we continue to do.
Shelly, you have some questions coming in. So the first one will be easy for you. Does AMBI serve as the official business advisory council for each of the districts and ESCs?
Yes. So AMBI was actually formed before BACs actually started. But yes, when the BAC guidelines came down, AMBI was easily able to easily transition into the business advisory council for all of those schools, and we do that through the local ESCs.
The next one is, do you have a sense of how many students have been placed as a result of the Talent Connection Forum?
Well, I would say that's one of the biggest things that we struggle with is, being able to, quantify. I was a plant manager for many years at Crown Equipment. So I come from that very systematic approach where we measured everything. And it's hard to measure some of these events and the engagements that happen. I can tell you at this last Talent Connection Forum, there were two construction companies and another electrical company there, and they all placed students, that week of that session. But, a lot of it's just about building relationships. Even if a student decides that they're going to go to college, remembering that they had a talk with, the local architect company, or they had a talk with the local marketing company, and they have an opportunity to maybe go back there and do a summer intern, or after they graduate, come back and work for that company. So it's really tough to measure, but we do know that we're making an impact.
That's great. And then lastly, what if students do not have professional attire for the event? Is there a means to get some?
We've not really had, I guess that's not really been a challenge. Either the school must take care of that on the back end that we're not aware of, or if the student comes, not in a professional attire, it's not like we won't let them in.
Good. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And just as a reminder, this presentation is available for download on our events and resources page, which we'll add that link again to the chat.
So Cassie, there are, I'm not sure, but there are, I think, 2 more slides I'll just go through real quick.
Perfect.
So a couple other things. We also do an event every year called the 20 Under 20. So we have businesses or schools, it's primarily businesses that will nominate students. We're looking for 20 students under the age of 20 who have really defined and started down their career path. And then we create videos for each student, and then we have a banquet at the end of the year where the students are recognized. So that's an event called the 20 Under 20. And then the next slide, the other thing that we do each year is that we hold summer educator tours. We do 2 weeks in the summer, usually 1 week in June and 1 week in July, and we'll go to 5 businesses each day. So it's a very structured day for the student or for the teachers. And I can tell you that the feedback from the teachers and the business community is just always very positive. You can see that on the slide there, it says that, it really helps the teachers change the mindset that all students need a 4-year degree. They get a lot of exposure to our local business and what kind of opportunities are available at those local businesses. And we were actually able to just hold those last week again. They were a little bit different with COVID, but we made it work. We were actually able to go into some of the businesses, and then we had a couple of the businesses come to us. So we were excited to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Next slide. I think it's just.
I love these action pictures. They're great.
Yeah, we very much try to make sure it is hands-on for the teachers and the businesses. It's a very interactive tour. So Patty, Cisco, I know that you're on the call as well. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add. You know, we do have a website and there is a video on the website about us. So, you know, feel free to jump on our website if you want to learn more. Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. And Patty, we'd love any of your thoughts and comments about participating in the Business Advisory Council, or if you have advice for the people who have attended today, would love to hear any advice you'd like to give too. Okay, our next high impact, oh, did we get unmuted? Nope, must have been someone else. Is Tasha Werry with Building Bridges to Careers. Take it away, Tasha. Looks like you're still on mute, Tasha. Still on mute. Third
you
time.
Can hear me now.
Now we can, yes.
Perfect.
Now you can. I was pushing *6 in the wrong place. Okay, yes, my name is Tasha Werry, and I'm the Executive Director of Building Bridges to Careers. And let me first start out by saying that we are located in Southeast Ohio, and the school districts and area that we operate in are rural. And so our population is quite a bit different from the two programs that have already been explained up in the northern parts of the state. We actually, similarly though, we were in existence before the Business Advisory Council policy came down, and we were already serving our school districts, all 6 school districts, and the Career Center that are in Washington County. So once the Business Advisory Council policy came along, the superintendents just asked for us to go ahead and be the Business Advisory Council. And as we were already in the process of doing several of the things that were suggested for a Business Advisory Council group, we decided to go ahead and do that. So if you want to go ahead and click to the next slide. The mission statement for Building Bridges to Careers: we foster student, business, and civic relationships, specifically to inspire career choices through experience, entrepreneurship, and education. So because of our mission, you can see we work under 3 basic buckets: youth career development, youth meaning up through ages 24, entrepreneurial development, and business education networking. So the programs and the projects that we have developed all kind of fall within those 3 different buckets. So if you want to go ahead and click to the next slide, please. So our vision, of course, we want to have successful students, strong businesses, and prosperous communities. And the 3 buckets that I mentioned are kind of help us determine the way in which we do things. You need to be, and both of the other 2 organizations have already kind of talked about this. You really need to have a comprehensive approach to what you do to have a full impact on the community. So by focusing on all of those 3 areas, career development, entrepreneur development, and business education networking, we have more opportunities to bring the various community members into the conversation and to help them find different ways to be involved in the work that we do. When we first started conversations around this work back in 2012, there were a lot of folks that really wanted to help. They really wanted to participate from the business community, but they just didn't know how. So we needed to be able to provide multiple levels and a variety of things that they could do in order to be able to support the schools in their county and the students, especially as they're trying to figure out what they want to do with themselves. Experience is certainly high on the list. We want to be able to help students get experience in a wide variety of ways. As everyone here, I'm sure already knows, if we never know when a student will be able to see themselves in a career or see themselves in an adult that they have come across, or have that epiphany about the direction they would like to go. We have no idea when it's going to happen, so we essentially have to provide for them many opportunities so that we can make sure that they have an epiphany somewhere in there. Okay, if you would click to the next slide, please. One of the things that we do a little bit differently, I already mentioned that we do serve as the Business Advisory Council for all schools. We have partnership agreements with our school districts as well. Somebody had mentioned in the previously that they were going to, work with schools to also develop some kind of financial support for the programs that they do. We have partnership agreements with schools, and so they actually pay in through the partnership agreements on a 3-year basis to the work that we do, and that's to let us know which of the school districts we will actually provide direct services to. So, for example, there are some of the schools in the county that have a job shadow program, and so our role with that particular school is to provide support to the program they have in place. An example is the high school in our county seat requires job shadowing for sophomores through a class that's a graduation requirement. So the teacher that's responsible for that will do a lot of the job shadow placements, the really easy ones, and then she will then pass off the ones that are a little bit more difficult or the ones that we have to go out and find to our organization, and we will complete those job shadow placements for her. And then in the other schools, if there is not a specific job shadow program, then we will actually go in and work with the teachers in the schools to get connected to the students so we can provide job shadow placements directly for them. And so, knowing which schools we need to be working with, that is the beauty of the partnership agreements. So we know exactly which ones to provide direct services to. Something else we do to just help with efficiency, because as everyone knows, we simply cannot add on more meetings, to the same group of people. We're very small schools, very low number of administrators. Oftentimes there is only a superintendent and a curriculum director, and that's it. And so working with county or district level administrators gets difficult because then they have to divide out some of the roles to the principals, and they're already, there's just lots of things going on. And so in order to streamline our meeting schedule, we work around the Washington County Career Center's school board meetings. So our Career Center serves only Washington County. So all 6 school districts in the county have a representative on the school board or somebody that's from that region. And so we have our Business Advisory Council, our quarterly Business Advisory Council meetings on the same nights as the Washington Career Center meetings, and we just have like an extended evening. So in that way, the Career Center board participates in the meetings, and of course the other board members are invited to participate as well. And so they will actually be in the meeting, in the Business Advisory Council meeting, and then go directly into their board meeting. So that works out rather well because we're so geographically isolated. It would be takes a lot of time to get into town. Some people are 30 minutes away. And so by streamlining that process, it also provides information for each board member that then takes back to their schools and to the rest of the boards. So that just kind of creates a little bit more information and communication flow with that as well. And so if you would go ahead and click to the next slide, please. One of the things that Cassie really wanted us to highlight was our BB2C Epicenter. The Epicenter is actually a location. We created the Epicenter in 2017 with a small business incubator. So the idea behind our Epicenter is that it is a youth and entrepreneurial development center that serves the county. Understanding, this is how we were able to help students understand, the world of entrepreneurialism. We did have a couple of our schools actually were creating entrepreneurial programs. So in order to provide, hands-on experience for entrepreneurial programs, you know, how do you provide that for a student? So what we did was created a small business incubator for local businesses, but we also directly connect that to students in order to help them understand, you know, the idea behind entrepreneurialism. So that got started in 2017 in 2 rooms in our local armory. So we only had 3 businesses at the time, and we were basically kind of piloting that work. It worked very well. We had the entrepreneurial class from one of our local high schools partner with the small businesses there, and they worked together several times. And so we realized that, yes, this is a model that's going to work. So then we wanted to be able to expand out and include a makerspace. That's a very popular concept, kind of new to our region. In 2018, you know, we were one of only a couple of makerspaces that were in existence. So it's really kind of a new concept to our area. So now where we are here in 2020, the Epicenter has space for 5 small businesses, and they are full right now. We also have a makerspace that has wood shop, stained glass, laser cutters, tech space, fiber arts, creative arts, and we have some space that we are still trying to fill up and utilize. And so essentially our purpose behind that is to not only provide an opportunity for community members and community adults and community small businesses to get support, we also serve our area students through both of those. So if you are an entrepreneur in residence, meaning you are in our small business incubator in one of our offices, you're required to work with students, either job shadowing, internship, or we'll call on them to go out and participate in school events at the schools, or if we have students here, they know we'll randomly knock on their door to ask, you know, specific questions or what have you. So this is a way in which we've been able to garner more connections and find ways to have that direct networking with community members and business members from the community. And it's also a way to provide our students with different kinds of experiences that can help them learn about the variety of opportunities, not only in the entrepreneurial realm, but also in the innovative technology realm, because not all of our schools are able to have the innovative technology and the new technology that students need to be able to see to understand the different things that are available for them. And also it helps them understand where locally too they can find the types of jobs that they learn about while they're here. You know, laser cutters, 3D printers, there are, you know, many local businesses that now that have 3D technicians, 3D printing technicians. And so they can learn the basics of that and then, you know, take it to the next level. And we can, you know, kind of refer them out to different programs to get them employed locally too. So we utilize the Epicenter in a wide variety of ways, but this is one of the ways in which we were able to make an impact as a career development organization. We were able to step into the entrepreneurial realm and really kind of make those connections, deeper connections for our students as well.
Thank you, Tasha. I think the idea of giving your former students and whomever really a space to build their own business and get on their feet while giving back to the community is such an innovative idea. I'm curious, for those of you that are on the call, if you can access your hand raising function that's in Teams here. Do any of you in your communities have something similar, like a small business incubator? If you do, raise your hand. I'm curious how many other people are having access to things like that. I see a couple of hands raised, a couple of head nods. So Tasha and Carrie, it looks like, and Pamela, maybe you guys can swap some good ideas on how to grow that piece of your business advisory council functions. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone have questions for Tasha? If so, please feel free to chat them, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, please feel free to do that as well. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. And we've included a link to each of your organizations that have shown so far in the Padlet as well. Okay, so last but definitely not least, we'd like to welcome Brian Stewart to talk a little bit about the Montgomery County ESC.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. I also have to give a shout out to Patty Buttlemeyer from Sochi and Pam, also from our region's Business Advisory Council. So glad to see some friendly names on the attendees. I'm the Workforce Director for Montgomery County Educational Service Center, and our Business Advisory Council consists of about 23 school districts. So we are everybody in Montgomery County and then everyone but one school district in Warren County. And we've been doing this work since, business advisory councils were kind of mandated. And, one of the things that our superintendent for the ESC, Shannon Cox, really likes to highlight when we talk about our back is that while this was, something that the districts were told they needed to do, this is something that we take pretty seriously and that we want to do more than just meet the demand of what we're supposed to do, but actually fulfill it in spirit as well. So it's a privilege that I get to have to work with our business community and the many different school districts that participate in our back. So if you want to jump to the next slide, I believe you have the cover of our Business Advisory Council's joint statement of work. And if anyone on this virtual meeting is thinking about, what is a good template or what is a good way to set up a back, I'm probably pretty biased, but I really like the way that we've set ours up. We have 5 different working groups, and every district that participates has at least one member of their school district's administration or a counselor or a teacher that participates. And one difference, though, from the joint statement of work that you can see on your screen is that we had 5 working groups. We had industry engagement, which was the kind of the working group to get businesses involved specifically to talk about how we could collaborate more closely with them. We had student engagement. We had parent and community engagement. And then we had 2 working groups called aligned curriculum, where we look at how we can do career connections more often in the classroom, and professional development. How can we design professional development opportunities for our staffs around our districts? And we actually just this spring combined professional development and aligned curriculum to be an educator engagement working group. And we kept to our 5 working groups, and now we have a policy one, because I'm sure many people on this in this meeting can attest to the fact that so much of the career connections work we need to be doing is rooted in changes that quite honestly need to take place at the policy level in the State House and even in a national lens. So one of the things that I think I was encouraged to talk about today was a focus on what we can do, given the pandemic and the quarantine, and how our Business Advisory Council has pivoted to meeting virtually and how that's gone since this spring, happened. Before our May Business Advisory Council meeting, we had a pilot program with more than 50 different employers who paid $75 a company to come and interview graduating seniors from our school districts looking to hire them. And we had pamphlets made of which companies had continuing education funds and all sorts of things like that. And obviously we had to cancel that. And it was 6 months worth of work down the drain. But I just wanted to highlight that while there were those kinds of stories, we were able to take things like our Career Adventures Camp and take them virtual. So the one example that I want to give, that's something that I think is a really great opportunity for business advisory councils around the state to explore, is possibly partnering with your library network. And I'm going to post into the chat feature here a link to Dayton Metro Library's Career Adventures Camp. And the example I want to give here is important because this camp, just due to funding, could only take about 30 middle schoolers every summer. We've done this for 2 years. And that's because you can only fit 30 middle schoolers into some of these advanced manufacturing company lobbies, right? So we were limited in space, but because of the pandemic and because of the new constraints, we took the program virtual. And if you click on that link, you can see the videos that we made in partnership with Wright State University's Interactive Media Department. And now we have 5 days worth of 15-minute videos to teach students about careers in some of our in-demand sectors. And I'm going to be completely honest with everyone in this meeting. They don't have the most views we'd like them to have yet. So we kind of plan on getting those videos into the hands of teachers for things like Health Professions Week and things like that. So I see a raised hand, Michelle.
Go right ahead.
Okay,
That was
okay.
just our cue.
No. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight to you all though that while there are constraints, there's still plenty of things that your Business Advisory Council can do. And one of the last things that I wanted to share, and I'm sure this will open up a can of worms, but feel free to email me, is I've never heard Padlet used more in a meeting than this one. I love that we're using Padlet, and we as a community have been using Padlet to map out our tech career pathways. And we are looking at all of our in-demand industries in the Miami Valley, but we're specifically starting with tech because it doesn't matter if it's advanced manufacturing or healthcare. Everybody has an IT department, and cybersecurity is so important to our region. So if you look at that Padlet, though, you'll see all the different districts, all the different teachers, all the different nonprofits, higher ed programs, the summer camps, the internships, the competitions, and it's basically our Business Advisory Council's effort to start mapping out where are the missed opportunities, where are the things that we can connect in a stronger way. And even this week we have an in-person cybersecurity summer camp going on, which probably sounds crazy to you, but we have very dedicated nonprofits in our area dedicated to this work. So my message to everyone is please feel free to reach out. We've been doing all sorts of virtual Business Advisory Council meetings, and I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but Zoom has actually made it a lot easier to meet with folks. So people don't have to drive from all over Southwest Ohio to come to our meetings. They can just hop in a virtual one. So I know it's really tough out there right now, and feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. I think that advice is really helpful. And the more that we can help connect each other to like collaboration spaces that are virtual, the more we'll be able to reach some of our partners that may or may not be comfortable with moving to an in-person session just yet. So thank you for sharing your Padlet resource. I'm going to add that. It's like Padlet Inception. I'm going to put it on the Padlet. So that's great.
And I think we have one question for Brian from Sherry. She's asking, how does your district implement U-Science?
Sure. So I'm a huge adherent. I love U-Science. I think it's incredible. We have our interns do it. But since we're 23 school districts, about 9 of our 23 districts use U-Science. And some do it at the middle school level. So it's the shortened version. It's U-Science Snapshot. And then some districts are implementing it where freshmen and juniors are taking it this last school year, and then they're going to just rotate all of their students through. But our goal is to have their U-Science profiles heavily impact just about everything we do. For instance, if we do a construction career panel, we want to have those counselors look at what students have an aptitude and interest in the skilled trades so we can target them to actually come to the events that might be applicable to them. So it totally varies is the short answer, but we love it, and we really like the opportunities it's afforded us so far.
Brian, do you mind giving like a 1-second overview of what U-Science is for people that might be tuning in and unaware of that resource?
Absolutely. U-Science is a assessment that basically you do 5 or 6 different 15-minute sections, and it tests your aptitudes and your interests. And at the end of it, no matter how you do, it's very positive, and it spits out all sorts of careers you might be interested in doing. And then most importantly, from I think all of our perspectives, it creates a report for the teacher, the counselor, the whoever would be working with them, the internship coordinator, to see how does that student respond to really just about everything. It's very creepy. I'll give you an account. I can easily make you an account. It's scary how spot on it is. When students look at their results, they like laugh uneasily, and then they're like, "Thank you for this. I really needed something like this."
That's good to know. And for those of you that might be using other career exploration tools, U-Science is a good complement to a lot of those because it does such a good job of taking into account aptitudes, which is not universally common in some of those career interest surveys. So thank you very much for sharing. Good stuff. Okay, well, if you have questions for Brian, feel free to put them in the chat, and then keep using that Padlet to share out best practices. So this presentation is linked, and you'll be able to find Montgomery County ESC's joint statement document when you download this presentation, or we can put the link right in the chat too. Okay, well, thank you again so much to our Promising Practices Share Out leaders. At this time, we're going to use a little bit of our agenda time to move toward an opportunity for all of you who are tuning in to share a little bit about what your Business Advisory Council is doing. So I'm going to ask Michelle to go ahead and make live our Padlet so that we can walk you through how we'd like to conduct this virtual discussion board here. So hopefully by now you've gotten a chance to at least log on to the Padlet. You don't have to sign up for an account at all. You can just post anonymously if you'd like, or if you do sign up for an account, you'll get your name kind of posted right there with your posts. So we have 4 questions that we'd like to ask all of you at this time. And the first one is here kind of in the middle of the page, and that is, what is your meeting structure for your Business Advisory Council? And probably most importantly, how do you make them meaningful? So I've placed an example post of how you can use this tool to kind of share your ideas out. Many BACs meet quarterly, but they also choose a meeting place wisely so that each of their business partners gets a chance to highlight some of their good work. So often the quarterly meetings are held in like an industry partner's business. So that's one example of a best practice on how to make the meetings meaningful. The next question we have for you is, what has been your most successful activity as a Business Advisory Council? So what we're hoping for at the end of our time together here is that we're going to have kind of a promising practices board where you can click links and view pictures from what other folks are doing. If you have links to other information that folks can take a look at, please include those in this column, this section here. The next question is, does your Business Advisory Council have a promising or a problem of practice that you would like advice on? I think I heard people mention earlier today that one of the things they're struggling with is getting business partners to the table. So if that is something that your Business Advisory Council would like some advice on, this would be the column to answer that or to post that problem, and other folks will be encouraged to then provide you some advice. And then lastly, and I believe Shelley hit on this earlier, what mechanisms do you have in place to make sure that plans are successful? I also believe Rachel from Akron Public Schools mentioned this too. So it's one thing to lay good plans. It's quite another to make sure that those plans turn into action. So what mechanisms does your Business Advisory Council have in place to make sure that those plans are successful? So we're going to stay live here on the Padlet for a few minutes and let everyone take some time to answer those. I know we have some call-in users, so if you're unable to join in front of a computer today, this Padlet will be live if you want to go back and revisit. But we're going to take just a couple of minutes to start populating answers to these questions, and we'll keep this Padlet live so we can watch them fill in. So take just a few minutes and answer those questions.
So as Padlet begins to fill in, I do see there's a question here. Someone is asking, what process do you follow for initial contact with employers to engage them in partnership? And I think Dr. James had actually started sharing some information about some of their contacts. If you would please, if you're still on the call, mind sharing a little bit about that to help this person's question address that, or if any of our other presenters. Go ahead, Dr. James.
Sure. So in our district, because I serve on a lot of other boards in our community, I actually got to know many of our top industry leaders personally. And so I just use that to really have the conversation, because many of them would say, you know, if it was visiting with the hospital CEOs or some of our manufacturers, they all would say the same thing, how they had really big concerns about workforce. So it would really, for me, it started at the CEO level. And for us, it worked out. I know every place isn't like, you know, Akron, which is a, you know, a mid-sized to large urban area, but for us, that relationship, you know, enabled a couple of CEOs to actually fly some of the other CEOs to Nashville to look at their model with Ford. And that really was the genesis. And that was led by our Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Akron Chamber. So, you know, we just try to use a lot of the current structures that they already were members of to really hone in on the message that we need to be partners. And then when you get, you know, an early adopter like Akron Children's Hospital, that just helps, because people were saying, look, if Bill Considine's going to partner with Akron Public Schools, we want to do it too. So it became kind of a competition in some respects. And I'm not saying it's easy to maintain those relationships. There's a lot of times we'll trip and fall, but, you know, we have that commitment to, you know, be joined at the hip. And I think it's really working out for our kids. So it takes a lot of, I think, your personality to really, you know, reach out to these people. And not a lot of times in schools, we approach it from like the classroom piece, try to learn the language of business and try to think about, you know, what their needs are. And I think it'll work out 9 times out of 10.
Great. And I think you said the key word, relationship building. And I know when I had spoken to Shelley Busey, she'd mentioned and shared some of her promise and practices in terms of building relationships with the business community. Shelley, do you mind just giving a little bit of tidbits on that as well?
Yeah. So, you know, I agree. I think in the beginning, I spent a lot of time building relationships, you know, going to each school, talking to the superintendents, the principals, the counselors, and, you know, finding out what their true needs were. And then, you know, I agree. Sometimes it's just learning the common language. You know, I found out very quickly that schools have their own language, lots of acronyms used in schools. But, you know, businesses have their own language too. So, you know, sometimes just making sure that everybody's on the same page, you know, when we're talking maybe about you know, problem solving, and maybe in the manufacturing world, they call it green belt and yellow belt, but, you know, in the school world, they're calling it something else. So just, you know, really, I guess, trying to be that connector between the schools and the businesses to build that common language.
Thank you. And I do see there's one other question that popped up on Padlet. It says, for those of you that have districts utilizing an ESC for their business advisory council, what strategies do you utilize for districts that only engage at a minimal level? I think this is quite an important question, if any of you are able to tackle that.
This must be a shared struggle.
Yes.
Do you mind if I chime in a little bit on that one?
Please do.
I would, for us, you know, building bridges to careers kind of serves similarly to what an ESC would, meaning we are serving a wide variety of districts, of course, not just working with a single one. For us, the way that we've been able to get our districts engaged is working like at multiple levels, meaning, you know, you've got your teacher level, principal level, district administrators, guidance counselors, and what have you. And so we try to do different things at different levels. We provide, of course, professional development that directly connects teachers to local businesses. And so we, you know, just put together a wide variety of it too. So there, you know, we have done teacher tours in the past, which were very easy. One credit hour, 2 days in the summer, you go and tour the businesses. and, you develop, information and strategies for connecting the information you found out to your curriculum. That's a very simple, easy way to get the teachers engaged and get them a part of the conversation. We have, problem scenario project. We've got a little bit longer one for teachers who need more like 3 credit hours. And each one of the PD opportunities that we provide, essentially require them to connect with local business and the community members in some way, shape, or form that impacts the career awareness and development of their students. And so in that way, because we've had, as everyone has had, you have a leadership change, and then they got to figure out, what they're doing with the school, and and so then all of a sudden everything has changed, and it's like, well, now we've lost our contact with the school that was doing some great stuff potentially, and so if you're doing things at each of the levels, and as you engage with teachers and they really like what you've done, then they will go and engage other teachers and bring them back, so we're kind of increase the number of the coalition of the willing at the teacher level, and then we provide support for the guidance counselors. We do know that our guidance counselors meet on a monthly basis, so we try to attend and find out, bring things to their monthly meetings that we know that they need around this information, and then connect with leadership too in a variety of ways as well. So just trying to have something available for all levels, so that way you're addressing each of them, and then they can, kind of work within their buildings too to share that information. I mean, it varies, because we have had multiple times where we have this teacher who's just so gung-ho and is fully engaged in lots of different things. They're bringing everybody in, and then they, their husband moves or they take a different job at a different school, and now we've lost that contact. So it's just we've learned that it has to be a constant networking thing. You need to really always be on the lookout for people that you can kind of bring on board and work with and provide them information that they need.
That's good advice.
Very true.
Okay, so the Padlet looks like it's still continuing to be filled in, which is great because it will remain live for a while. So we want to make sure that we share all the relevant information so that you can end this session together with a goal that you can take back to your business advisory councils to say, here's what I'm really hoping that we accomplish this year. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing back to our presentation here. And we're going to move into our final topic for our agenda here today, which is all about Business Advisory Council planning. So that plan template overview can be found on our Department of Education website, and it is linked right here in the presentation. So Michelle's going to walk you through the various sections of the plan, and then how to use those topics to do some goal setting. As she's walking you through those, there is a final column on our Padlet for you to display one goal that you would like for your Business Advisory Council to accomplish this year. And so what we would like to do here at the state level and with our partners on the call is to really help support you in that goal. Some of you have already put in here that you really want to figure how remote is going to look for your business advisory councils, and how to make sure that career readiness is a focus for districts, even in light of COVID-19. So that really may be a great target goal for a lot of you, is to just, how are we going to pivot our operations in a remote setting? So as Michelle's walking you through the key principles and targets for school district or for business advisory councils, go ahead and be thinking of what that one goal might be. So Michelle?
Yes, and as I think Brian said something that was quite key. He said that when they're working on their business advisory councils, although it was something that was mandated, they make an effort to go above just pretty much checking the box. And of course, we want all of our business advisory councils to thrive. And so as you are working on your plans, thinking of ways that you can advance our students beyond high school, having a post-secondary plan, whether that be with our higher education partners or working with business advisory councils to work on students having industry recognized credentials, whatever path that they choose. I hope that you'll keep those in mind as you plan your as you put together your plans. And so as you're putting together your plans, we hope that you'll first add your mission statement. it's so important to have a mission statement so that you can remain focused on what the goals that you have set forth and remain in keeping those goals in focus so that you can actually achieve those goals. And so as you begin to put together your plans, I hope that you would really sit down with those involved and really construct a mission statement that's first of all something that represents those things that you want to have done throughout how you want to develop your students, but also how you're going to partner with local business advisory councils. So the first thing we're going to ask you to do is to add your mission statement. And we hope that you would not just have that mission statement, that as in Padlet, that you'll also develop those statements and be able to follow through on them. So we want you to develop those statements with a purpose that reflects the goals and direction of the council and how it will support stronger connections between business and schools to enhance the performance of students. And so it's important, again, that you build those relationships through business advisory councils with the local business community, as Dr. James had mentioned, to be able to, first of all, identify the needs in the community and then therefore equipping students to be able to attain those jobs. Next slide, please. And business advisory councils, so as you're putting together those plans, we hope that you'll identify the industry representatives, including economic workforce development partners, and also please include those higher education partnerships as well. And so if you can go to the next slide. There we are. I think you just had it. It may just be my internet, so I apologize. So if you can, as you're putting together those plans, there are certain components that we hope that you would be sure that it's included in there. Although on the plan that's listed on our website, and we'll direct you to the Success Bound page. It actually has some of the information there as well as the Career Connections page. It will ask that you put the name of the member, so that we can know how to stay in touch. We want to be able to support you in the work that you're doing, the name of the employer that you have identified and the industry represented. There's one thing on here that, although it's not listed, we'll ask that you also put that contact's email information as well so that we can stay in touch with you. It makes it that much easier for us to follow through with you. And then also, on the second part of this, if you can put the education partners, the schools that you're representing for the ESCs, the school buildings that you're representing, the title of the person, the contact, and also, again, if you can please state an email contact information in there as well, so that we can have an easily accessible way to stay in touch. Next slide, please. And in terms of your plan, we would like for you to include the designated times that are specified for your meetings. And I think Brian rightfully indicated the way that we may approach meetings may not necessarily be face-to-face as you have done in the past, just like they have expressed and they've continued through virtual meetings. So having a clear direction in terms of having those meeting dates. I know that some business advisory councils meet more than 4 times a year, and you can either include that information. You can also reach out to us if you'd ever like for us to attend any of those meetings. We're happy to do so as well. But we'd like for you to specify the dates that you would be meeting as a business advisory council. And also, for some, you may also have components like Montgomery County Schools, where they're also incorporating those virtual meetings. If you don't mind including that information, that would be really helpful to us as well. Next slide, please. And in your plan, we hope that you would also address the responsibilities of the business advisory councils. We hope that you'll be able to express those things that you will be doing in the next academic year. If you can explain the process that the advisory council will use to research those in-demand jobs using Ohio Means Job. If you can use that tool, it actually tells you of some of the in-demand jobs, but you know best your local community and the needs that you have. And so if you can kind of build those relationships with your local business leaders and find out exactly how we can best partner so that you can actually prepare students to actually take advantage of those positions. So we'd like for you to include in that plan, what are some of the action steps that you're going to implement to actually be able to meet those needs of the local businesses, but also the needs of the students, whether it be through mentorships, specify when these activities will take place, who will complete the task. And I think having a clear direction as it's outlined here will help you to attain and accomplish those goals. So whether it be through work-based learning initiatives, whether it be through internships, whether it be through mentorships, be specific in when you're putting together your plans to be sure to outline who is responsible for that portion. When do you hope to accomplish that goal? And what do you need to complete these steps? I think it's so important to first assess what your needs are so that you be able to fully accomplish those goals and objectives. And then be sure to also list what are your desired outcomes, okay? And then one thing, if there are any, as the economy changes, as we know, we're in some pretty uncertain times. Also outlining your plan, how do you plan on tackling that? And I think that goes back to relationships, building relationships again with those local businesses to be able to know those shifts and changes economically so you can know how to address those changes, how you can best equip our students and develop those relationships. So we want you to be able to have sustainable relationships, as Tasha rightfully mentioned. I think developing those relationships as a business advisory council, you won't have to depend on one person leaving and then it kind of throwing those relationships off. But if they're developed as a business advisory council, it makes it so much easier to maintain those relationships past that one passionate teacher or that one person that was enthusiastic about getting students involved. Next slide, please. And at this time, we're going to ask you, we want you to set goals for the next academic year. What is your number one goal for your Business Advisory Council for the next academic year for 2020, 2021? I know that there are uncertainties, but what is the one thing that you want to have accomplished? And I think it will also, this comes into what Brian said as well, thinking outside the box, how we can still move this work forward, even though it's a time of uncertainty. And so I'd like for you to utilize two things, Padlet, to express what are those goals that you'd like to have accomplished, and also in the chat box as well. So what is the one thing, if you can think of, that you would like to have your business advisory councils focus on for the next year? And it could be something as simple as maybe you had swings of ups and downs, and maybe you'd like to stabilize those meetings and stabilize accomplishing those goals. You'd like to maybe have a clear direction. Maybe you'd like to have more mentorship opportunities for students, more internships. What are those goals that you'd like to set for the next year? And you can go ahead and either utilize Padlet for that or also the chat box. Does anyone have any clear goals that they have been thinking of for setting for the next academic year? And I'll give you a minute to think about that because I know that's a loaded question and you may need to put some thought into that. So I apologize, mine is loading again. So I think I saw that one person might have put something in Padlet, but my computer's still loading.
Yep, Michelle, so I'll take care of you here. So it looks like there's a couple around work-based learning and thinking through systems approaches to expanding work-based learning opportunities for all students, and then also utilizing data to track progress. So we do have some filling in, and unfortunately, we're very quickly running out of time here today. So we've had such good information shared, and hopefully you've been able to connect with some of the attendees and the presenters that are on here today. So we're gonna finish up with just a couple of feedback asks, and then also a request for some feedback on how this session went. So we've linked here in our PowerPoint a survey for this specific Success Bound Summer Series that we would love to hear your input on how to make these better for you. And then we also in the Padlet would like to know if there are some specific Business Advisory Council needs that you have for the coming school year. If there's a more specific type of session that you'd like to have a roundtable with some Business Advisory Council leaders just to swap ideas with, we'd be happy to orchestrate some of those. But anything that you can think of that we can do to help support this work so that we are, making this a point of emphasis in the coming school year, but also just creating the conditions for you to do that in your local communities. So please feel free to take the survey and tell us what your most immediate Business Advisory Council needs are. All of this information will be posted on our events and resources webpage. We also want to invite you to our last summer series session, which is taking place next Monday in the form of our Career Connections Conference. So as you can see here, we have a jam-packed schedule full of exciting breakout sessions and very exciting keynote sessions. So we do have a CEO that's going to join us to kick off our conference, and then a superintendent of schools that's going to be closing off our conference. So we hope you can join us next Monday. We've linked the registration and more information here. We also have some more resources around advisory boards and stakeholder engagement for you to take a look at. And then we again just want to encourage you to connect with us on social media and through our Ed Connection if you have the availability to do that. And lastly, we just want to thank you for joining us today. So we very much appreciate your time and hope that this was a worthwhile session. We absolutely want to continue to host these with you, but we want to make them as meaningful as humanly possible. So please tell us how we can do that, and if today met the mark or if there's ways that we can improve. So we really appreciate all your feedback. If you have closing comments, we'd love to hear them. If not, we'll hopefully see you next Monday at the Career Connections Conference.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you next Monday.
Thank you all. Thank you very much to our presenters.
Thank you to all of our presenters. Have a great day, everyone.